Hey guys, I know it's been a while since I've posted, and I did have my baby. I'm finally a mother. Today is October 25th, and my baby girl, she was born October 2nd of 2023, obviously. So she is 3 weeks and 2 days right now. I look crazy, but okay. I really didn't post on any social media or platform, and I'm just doing Snapchat way of recording because it's easier than that camera I have. That one always makes me look blurry, so we're gonna film on Snapchat, and I'm gonna just send the videos to me and just edit that way. But yeah, so this is my birth story of my baby girl. Her name is Rainy, and yeah, this is gonna be a story of how she was born. So my birth plan, I never really talked to my doctor about my birth plan, but I did tell a lot of family and friends that basically I wanted to try to do a natural birth, but I was okay with either getting an epidural or if I had to have an emergency C-section, sure, whatever was best for the baby to get her out healthy. And so, but I really wanted to try for a natural birth. As you guys know, I lost a pregnancy last year, and I mean, I guess mentally I thought like I've already been through the most emotional pain, and miscarriages are very painful too. But you know, I wanted to kind of challenge myself to be like, I've gone through kidney stones, I've gone through kidney stone surgery, I've gone through the miscarriage, I've gone through a lot physically, pain-wise. So I wanted to challenge myself, and I knew it was for a good reason, blah, blah, blah. Good thing I was open to everything else because everything else ended up happening. So let me go back to the due date, which was September 30th is when she was supposed to, that was her due date time. But she wasn't here. And so on October 1st at 9 in the morning is when my water broke. Okay, so October 1st, at 9 in the morning, my water broke. I woke up and, you know, it was not like in the movies where it's just this gush of water. At least for me, it wasn't. Sometimes it is for women, but it was more like, it's that question of like, did I pee myself in the night? So I went and I emptied my bladder, and since the day before, I did end up seeing that movie, Saw X, because I wanted to see that. It came out the 29th. So, yeah, I ended up seeing it the 28th. I tried to see it before on the 28th, but I saw it on the 29th. Her due date was the 30th. She wasn't here. I had, on the 30th, started trying to induce labor by eating pineapples and walking and stuff like that, being on my pregnancy ball. My doctor said we would wait until that Thursday at 41 weeks, and then we would schedule an induction. I didn't really want to get induced, so I wanted to have my body just do everything naturally. So on the 1st, I started walking and eating pineapples, and my water broke in the morning. And so we went to the store. My husband and I went to the store because I didn't want to walk outside in case it broke and then he won't be there. So we went to the store, and it was definitely my water breaking. Like, it must have just been leaking, a slow leak, because I just kept feeling like random gushes of water breaking. It very much is like if you've had a heavy flow of a period and you didn't put pad on and you just feel yourself leaking down there. So every time he told a joke, I would leak more. So I knew it was my water breaking, and I watched some videos about if your water breaks. Some videos were saying that's non-emergency to go to the hospital, like in the movies, like how they rush into the hospital, wait till you start feeling contractions, stuff like that. But I'd waited all day, and I felt like light contractions, but not like anything like, oh, this is it. My husband was about to cook dinner, so I was like, before you cook, let me call and just ask the hospital what they think about the leaking fluid all day. So I called up. I told him I think my water broke this morning at 9 o'clock, and it is about 7 o'clock at night. And they're like, if you could please actually just come in so we can make sure it is amniotic fluid. Because if that's the case, we don't want you to get an infection. And that's another reason I want to put that out there is if your water does break, even if it's a big gush or a low gush, go get checked out. Make sure it is your amniotic fluid, because you could also get an infection if you let go too long. So we went up, we threw the hospital bags that were already packed into the car just in case. And sure enough, I was very shocked, because the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, it's probably not really. It's probably just discharge or something. So I was like, I think I wasted our time coming up here. But then they came back after they tested it, and they're like, yeah, it's definitely your amniotic fluid. I'm like, oh, okay. And they're like, yeah, we're going to admit you into the hospital. You're probably going to have a baby soon. I'm like, okay, let's do this then. So they admit me. I go from just the check room that we were in earlier this year, when I just had a severe UTI. I didn't know if I was going into labor, because that was really painful. And that's just to make sure to see how far a woman is. And then they took us into another room. And again, I wasn't in like actual labor, because I wasn't like, I hadn't dilated. It's kind of like that night I went to get checked. And again, that was just a UTI, but my cervix was completely shut. Well, again, my cervix was shut. I guess it was like, they kept seeing a fingertip open, like barely. So that's why the water was getting through, because it has to be open some way, somehow. So it's barely open. So, but they admitted me, and let's see, I think that was like 7, maybe going on 8 o'clock when they got admitted. I called my sister, because the only people I wanted in the room was me, obviously, my husband, and my sister, if she would be able to come up. And that was Monday night, so her partner just didn't go to his little event that he always goes to Monday, and so she was able to come up, and that was great. And so we were just kind of waiting all night, and I think it was around 9 o'clock that my sister reached out to her boss saying, hey, my sister still hasn't had the baby yet, so I'm going to take off work tomorrow. So she was there for the next day, which was October 2nd. But that whole night, like, I don't know, I can't remember now if I dilated anymore. I may have finally gone up to 1 centimeter. Okay, so that whole night, I did feel bad, because my husband was like, oh, I'm going to go home and get a good night's sleep. And I'm like, so you're going to leave me here to have a baby by myself? I should have just let him go, come back home, because that night, oh my God, the nurses came in like every 30 minutes, I think, to check my levels, my blood pressure, see if my cervix had opened anymore. Not every 30 minutes were they checking that, but every so often. But they were coming in the room every 30 minutes, and I was able to sleep. Like, I was able to take short naps, like maybe 15-minute naps, and then they would come in. And so, like, it never bothered me when they came in. So, but he didn't get any sleep, and I felt so bad. So when the morning came, he's like, I'm going to go check the dogs. I was like, just stay and get some sleep until we know anything. And it wasn't until, well, okay, I'm trying to remember the chronological order of it all. So the day, October 1st, they have an anesthesiologist come in and talk to you about an epidural. And I was telling her kind of my game plan. I don't really want to do it at first, but if I do end up feeling I need one. And she was like, that's actually the smarter way to do it. That way you're not doing it too early. So if it runs out or anything, not runs out, but like you get used to it, and then you'd be like, I need more. It's like, we can't give you more. So I was like, okay. But once the contractions started, they hurt, obviously. But it wasn't until my sister was like, you know, I commend you for challenging yourself and being like, oh, I've been through all this. But at the same time, don't you want to enjoy the experience? You know, like you're right. You've been through a lot. You've put your body through a lot. This is a happy moment. You're about to have your baby you've been wanting. Like, she probably didn't go into all this, but this is basically what it meant. Like, I was having the baby I have been waiting so long for, you know? So why not enjoy it instead of sitting there being in pain? And sometimes natural birth can stress the baby out because it's so much. So I was like, that's a good point. I do just want to enjoy it. So before I asked for the epidural, I asked if there's anything I could do for the pain besides an epidural. They're like, oh, you can have morphine. That's a whole joke, because when I was in the surgery for the kidney stone, I guess I woke up telling my mom I didn't care about anything except for morphine. So now here I am asking for morphine. But the morphine just dulled the pain. Like, it didn't take it away. So I ended up asking for an epidural. The anesthesiologist was the only person I had an issue with. She just was kind of rude. She's just rude because she was like, oh, I told you not to get it so early. And I was like, okay, but I want it. And then, like, when she was putting the epidural in, I had a nurse in front of me and she was behind me putting it into my spine. And she told me how to sit, but I'm still kind of like dulled up from the morphine, so I can't really stand too well. And she knew about the morphine. So she's like complaining that my back is all crooked, and she's telling the nurse, she's like, have her sit upright, have her sit like this. I'm like, bitch, I'm right here. You could just ask me to sit a different way. And then she asked me to stand up just to sit in a different position. And when I stand up, because of I still couldn't feel my legs too well, I fell. Still pregnant. Being pregnant, and I fall. I didn't feel it. I didn't feel the fall because I was so dolled up. But yeah, I had a pretty good bruise on my knee afterward. And it wasn't the anesthesiologist that picked me up, who's right next to me. No, this bitch backs up away from me, and my sister has to come from across the room to help pick me up. And then she was her doing other stuff, but I'm not going to sit here and bitch about the anesthesiologist the whole time. She just was the only person I really prefer during the birth section. But yeah, back on to the rest of it. So I got the epidural and I couldn't feel anything. They put a catheter in me, which, again, back from kidney stone surgery. I remember the catheter because I don't have to get up every 2 seconds and pee. I'm just peeing into a bucket that I don't even know about. And I love it. I wish I could have that all the time because I get so annoyed of having to pee all the time. Which actually I haven't had to pee in the middle of the night as much, probably because I'm not pregnant anymore. But anyway, let's see. So I got the epidural and they checked my cervix a few more times, which with an epidural, they could check it as many times as they want. It's funny, like without it, I was like looking like the Exorcist, like rising out of bed. And then with it, I was just like, yeah. But the point blank, I only got to 5 centimeters dilated. That's all my body got to. But in the meantime, baby girl did have a bowel movement, and I got kind of worried because, like, in all the videos and research I've done, they all say if the baby makes a bowel movement, it's like an automatic, you need to get the baby out right now, like probably automatic, an emergency cesarean right now. No, these nurses just said it like, you know, the baby moved a little. She's like, oh, she's telling the next nurse that's coming on duty, she's like, oh, by the way, baby had a little meconium come out, which is them passing a bowel movement, going potty. And she's just like, oh, okay. I'm like, shouldn't this be more of a concern? They're like, nah, it's fine. I'm like, what the fuck? But they checked my cervix. They're like, you're only at 5. And with as much time, because this is like 24 hours later, and I only got to 5 centimeters. So my doctor deemed it necessary to go ahead and do a cesarean due to how much time has gone by with little progress. Kind of was bummed out that my body didn't naturally open up more. Because it made me wonder, like, shouldn't I be naturally opening more? But whatever. Oh, I also had a fever, and I think that's when I got scared, because I did have a fever. I started shivering really bad. Like, my husband, thank gosh he was at home. I did not want him to see me like that. Like, I don't have seizures, but I've had friends who've had seizures. And not to say I was like anyone who had a seizure, but had someone not known what was going on with me, I believe I looked as if I was having a seizure, because I was shaking so uncontrollably. I was literally trying to stop, and the whole time just like my jaw was shaking, my whole body was shaking. And I told them, like, I cannot control this. I'm trying so hard not to. And they're like, no, you're fine. But you need to go and get this baby out, because baby's beginning to stress due to everything. So I was like, okay. They're like, you're okay with the cesarean? I was like, yep. Again, my plan, do it as naturally, but whatever gets her here safely, just go ahead and do it. And so at 9, whatever, they went in, put me in the operating room to get a cesarean section. And then, so they wheel me into the operating room, and I'm beginning to like feel loopy, like I'm about to pass out. And they keep asking me, they're like, how are you doing, Amanda? How are you doing? I'm like, I feel nauseous. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we'll give you something for that. And then a few minutes later, they're like, how are you doing? And I'm like, literally like dead to the world. I'm like, I think I'm about to pass out. And they're like, girl, it's okay, go ahead. But for some reason, I kept thinking the anesthesiologist was going to get mad at me, because she just was not the nicest person. So I thought she was like going to get mad if I passed out. But like, I couldn't help it. I literally was like that. And last thing I remember was them. I was like, how are they going to put me on the bed thing for the operating thing? And they just all, like, teamwork effort. 3 people just put me onto the bed. And they're like, oh yeah, the anesthesiologist lady, she was like, okay, move your hands onto the bed. And this is me trying. I'm like, and they're like, okay, don't move your hand onto the bed. And then I wake up, and they're like, congratulations. I'm like, what? And I see this blue tarp thing in front of me, and they're like, you just had a baby. And I was like, I did. And my husband's next to me. And then I just see this little baby go boop, like just boop over the blue tarp. And she was so cute. She was so tiny. And the way to put it best is, during my pregnancy, I kept saying, oh, it's feeling so real now. It's feeling so real with every milestone. In that moment, it is real, but it felt like a dream. Like, I was like I just see this little baby, and I'm like, oh, that's cute. And then I pass out again. So yeah, I passed out. But when I wake up again, my doctor is like right in front of me, and he's like, you did a great job. And I'm like, did I? And I'm like, what's going on? And I look over at this lady who my husband said was the one helping. If you hear snoring, that's my dog. Took her on a walk. Here. There she is. Well, now she's not snoring. Anyway, but I look at this lady, and I'm like, I'm so sorry I fell asleep. She's like, you're not the only, she's like, you're fine. You're not the only one who's done that. Hey, at least you didn't snore. And it's not like you haven't had a long day. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, no one's mad at me? And she's like, no one's mad at you for sleeping. I'm like, oh, okay. But again, in all these videos I've watched, I watched every type of birth to educate myself on. And in none of those videos were any woman passed out or sleeping or not conscious for the birth of their baby. They're all like, they bring the baby over, do skin to skin. You look at your husband, you're like, it's such a moment. No. I'm like, pass out. Oh, you had a baby. I did. Whee! Little baby floating through the sky. And then you did a great job. I'm like, okay. But we get wheeled into a different room, the postpartum room. And that's where I got to see her for the first time. She's so cute. She's so tiny. She was 12 inches long, 7 pounds and 12 ounces. Yeah, and she was so cute. And oh my gosh, she had a full head of hair. I'm going to post some pictures. But when I saw her hair, I was like, there's acid reflux. I was feeling the entire pregnancy. And guess what? I haven't had acid reflux since. But yeah, that was the night she was born. And then we had my sister come back in to meet her. And that part was exactly like I would imagine it. The whole thing, I was just like, I was glad that she's just happy and healthy and is perfect. And I was just happy with it. And then the next day, they tried to do skin to skin. One thing I would put out to anyone who's planning to breastfeed, again, they did not ask me, do I plan to breastfeed? Do I plan to formula feed? I think until I got there, and I was just like, no, I'm planning to just do as natural as possible. But if anyone's planning to breastfeed, start collecting your colostrum first, like earlier before the baby gets there. That way, I don't know, if it doesn't work out, at least you have something to feed the baby while you're there. But I had taken online classes for breastfeeding, so I hadn't taken anything in person. I wasn't collecting colostrum, so they had to kind of teach me how to do everything. So even though she hated latching, that was the saddest part. She really hated latching, but even when she did, I couldn't tell she was getting anything. And so on October 3rd, the next day, they kept coming in to check. And it was funny, the night she was born, October 2nd to the 3rd, I feel like we got the best sleep because they really actually didn't come in. Everyone's like, oh, they'll come in a million times after the baby's born. They didn't really bother us that night. But October 3rd, they kept checking her blood sugar and her temperature. And she wasn't being able to regulate her temperature, and her blood sugars were really low. So midday, they told me that, like, we're going to check them again. And if they're low or anything like that, she's going to be taken to the NICU, which is all the way across town. So basically away from me, because I was still having to breeze past this because I'll get emotional. It was really hard. They did end up having to take her to the NICU across town. And I did cry a lot. And my doctor came in and was more fatherly than doctorly. He, because he knew why. Like, it's hard for any new mom to just have their baby taken somewhere else. But he, like, knows my fear of losing my baby at all the stages of pregnancy and everything. So he comes in and he sits with me and he's like, I know why this is hard for you. It's harder than normal. He's like, but the thing is we could send her home, put a Band-Aid fix on her, send her home, and then you'll have to come back in an emergency because something worse could happen. Or we're going to send her off and be apart from her for a few days, but she'll be completely cleared and healthy. And I don't know, just him realizing why it was so difficult helped so much. So I was like, okay, go. It's okay. Do what you need to. And it was hard. The thing I told my mom was, we're going to look back on it and be like, oh, remember when we couldn't bring her home? It felt like forever, but now we have her. I knew that day was going to happen. Even then, as hard as that was to have that mindset, I knew that was going to happen. So we did visit her in the NICU. I kept getting annoyed because they're like, oh, 48 hours, but then we have to make sure this, and then we have to make sure that, and we have to make sure this, and we have to make sure that. And I would call every day being like, is everything looking good? Oh, everything's looking great, but now we have to make sure this, we have to make sure that. And I'm like, I'm trying to understand, but I really just want my baby. So on October 6th, so she was born the 2nd, on the 3rd she got taken to the NICU, and on October 6th, which was Friday, she's finally cleared to come home with us. And yeah, that was the story of my birth. It was, it went exactly kind of like how I thought it'd be. I tried to do as naturally as possible, but I ended up getting the epidural and having a cesarean. Breastfeeding, it's still a process. I'm basically going to just be doing exclusively pumping. I don't know if this is normal. I don't have many friends that breastfed. My sister, she tried and she stopped. And then just a lot of women around me, they just didn't breastfeed. They just did formula. When she went to the NICU, even though she was latching and she was getting used to it, they fed her through a bottle and they fed her formula. And so she got used to that. So I saw two lactation consultants to help me. So I was like, okay, it's for the best because she's going to learn how to eat properly. I'll learn how to, excrete milk properly. But it took a few days after we got home. They sent us home with some formula. We have had to buy a few stashes as well ourselves, for just in case. But she is latching, and she's latching on both breasts now. At first she was just latching on one, but now she's latching on two, on both of them. I just don't know. I can't tell if she's getting enough. That's the only difference. She finally is, so she was 7 pounds, 12 ounces when she was born. When she went to the NICU, she actually lost some weight. So she was discharged from the NICU at 7 pounds, 8 ounces. But they said that was more than when she went in. And then at her last one, she was 7 pounds, 14 ounces. So more than both of those. But I can't tell how much she's getting when she's breastfeeding. And she always seems more cranky after breastfeeding. And for me personally, I don't know if this is normal. I get this sense of sadness after I breastfeed. Like, yes, I'm accomplished and I feel great while breastfeeding, but afterwards, it's just a sense of, it's not like postpartum depression or anything. It's just a sadness I feel, and I don't know how to explain it to anyone because nobody, again, around me has breastfed that I can be like, is that a normal feeling? I don't know, but I'm finally being able to pump more now. Finally getting a hang of it. Definitely recommend the power pumping where at first it seemed silly to me because I was like, how is that going to produce more milk? But it actually is working. So you pump for 20 minutes, you take an hour out of your day, pump for 20 minutes, take a 10-minute break. Pump for 10 minutes, take a 10-minute break throughout that hour. And I actually did pump more than usual. It's just my second day of the power pumping, but I don't know. That part's been fun because it's like it's still me nourishing her, but she doesn't scream as much. Like, she just doesn't like me breastfeeding. I don't like me breastfeeding. She's getting more used to it now. Like, she's not yelling and screaming the whole time, but I don't know. That just may not be my thing to actually breastfeed, but pumping, I do enjoy doing that and supplying her with that, and it's fun, like filling up the containers and seeing how much I'm producing for her. I did see that when you breastfeed, you do feed them more than what you get out when you pump. So hopefully, even when she does breastfeed, she's getting enough, but I just can't tell. And I don't like that. I don't like not being able to tell. But other than that, she's been doing really good. She's, everything's been actually going good. Okay, so that was my first story. We had a baby, and it really didn't take long. We started trying. My husband said we'd start trying in September 2022. We got pregnant with that first, I had a chemical pregnancy in July of 2022, and then I got pregnant at the end, actually, of September. Yeah, the end of September 2022. Then we lost it on Thanksgiving of 2022. Was not going to start trying until February of 2023. Found out I was pregnant January 18th, 2023. And so, yeah, but the worrisome stuff, it's gone away a lot. I mean, there's really not a whole lot to worry about, but I do worry about like how she sleeps and like if she's faced up and make sure she can breathe and stuff like that. There's always going to be worry. I get it now. As a mom, you're just always going to worry, but it's not as much like on me where it's like because my body failed this baby or something like that. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but anyway, that's actually the conclusion of my birth story. So yeah, thanks guys for staying tuned. I do think I'm going to take this channel to a different platform, not different platform, a different direction, more of like films and reviewing films. I know that there's still strikes going on and everything, but I'll just do like synopsis of the films I've seen this year, because I wrote a whole list at the beginning of the year and I've actually knocked out quite a few films this year. So I think that's where I'm going to take it. That's not the content you want to watch, that's fine. The reason I don't want to do parenting content is because mainly that lady, I forget her name, something Frankie, that whole situation of her going to jail and all that stuff. But, you know, like she was not being nice to her kids. But I don't know, just with parenting, you get a lot of feedback. You can get a lot of negative feedback about how to parent, how you're not parenting correctly. I don't need to hear all that. The pregnancy journey was just because that was the journey I was on, and I researched the shit out of it, and I wanted to help other women in case they're researching it too. So that's kind of why I wanted to do that. But with parenting, I do research and I do all that, but I don't know. I don't want to put her out there. I'll share some photos in this video, but I don't want to post too many photos. It's a corrupt little world out there, and I don't need her to be out there. So I may just take it in a film direction, which is what I've always wanted to do. If it kicks off too, I may not have to go back to my dog groom job. I would love that. But anyway, that's high hopes. But thank you guys for staying tuned and for all the well wishes. And yeah, thanks guys. We had a baby. Whee!
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. The other night, dear, as I lay sleeping, I dreamt I